Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. As you join, we'll give people a few minutes to join. But as you join, do feel comfortable jumping into the chat and saying hello, who you are, where you're from. And we'll give it a couple of minutes so that people can get their Zoom together and their cup of tea done. Just to repeat that, as you join, feel free, jump into the chat, say hello. I'd love to hear where everybody is. Awesome. Thanks, Henry. Thanks, Simone. One or two more minutes before we start. Hey, Lucy, thanks for joining us. Thanks, Ben. One more minute. Hi, Nana. Yeah, repairs is very closely connected. Okay. Just as people join, final time I'll say this. Do jump into the chat, say hello, let us know where you are. Excellent. Portugal and the Netherlands. Brilliant. Okay, let's get started. Let people are hopefully still going to keep joining us as well. But let's get started. Just a reminder that this is being recorded. But hi, everyone. My name is Barry. Welcome to the session today. I'm really excited and slightly daunted to be hosting these three amazing guests and what I hope will be a really fun conversation. This is the plan for the session. After I've stopped talking and doing a quick introduction, we'll do hear from our three guests, and then we'll have a panel discussion and answer your questions. Before the hour is up, we'll finish the recording and end the formal part of our session today. If you can, you're most welcome to stay around and join us in a less formal, more open group discussion and a chance to connect. Okay, so first things first, just to make sure, we're really keen to make sure that this is a useful and practical session. So I wanted to do a really quick poll. Let me launch that now. Simple 3-question poll. Please do take a minute, fill it out, let us know a little bit about yourselves. And if you have a specific topic or question that you hope that we cover in today's session. It's only 3 questions, hopefully it'll only take a minute or two. As I said, we're really keen to make sure that the session today is useful. So do share that last third question, any of your thoughts. If we can't cover it today, we'll make sure that we do follow up. I'll just give a minute or so a few people can fill it out. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it depends on your version of Zoom, actually, whether the poll will pop up. If you can't see it, then just think nice thoughts. Cool. People are still answering. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the moment to do that. Okay, just really quickly, who am I and where did this session come from? My name is Barry. I have been 20 years or so in the software and as an entrepreneur. I founded Happyport about 10 years ago. We're a bespoke software and digital product consultancy. We provide digital product development, fractional tech leadership, and in-house team augmentation, focused particularly on circular economy initiatives. And Happyport is born out of my passionate belief that software, when it's created and implemented with care, can be a vital enabler for positive change, and that circularity has the potential to combine social and environmental positive change, but also aligning that with the incentives for successful purpose-driven businesses. This webinar is the culmination of a podcast series, our new season of the podcast, happyporchradio.com, which was a deep dive into resale in fashion industry, and particularly looking at the role of technology. That's at Happy Porch Radio. Please do check it out. One of the supporters for the webinar today is Resale Radar. Resale Radar is a startup offering comprehensive resale pricing and market data to facilitate profitability and speed of sale, detailed insights into pricing across products, brands, within geographies and timeframes, empowering decisions for resale. If you're interested in finding out more about Resale Radar, do reach out to me and I'll connect you. Now, crucially, we want to make this session as useful, as I said, and practical as possible. Please do use the Q&A button. Use it at any time as we're speaking today. Ask questions. There's no question too basic, no question too challenging for us today. We'll do our best to cover everything in the conversation, and if necessary, follow up afterwards. You can use the anonymous option if you want. It's more than welcome. And as a reminder, please do hang around at the end when we finish the recording. We'll have a more open, well, unmute people and have a more open, less formal conversation. Okay, let's get on with it. Our first amazing guest today is Sofia. Sofia is, let me find my notes. Sofia started her career in consulting in McKinsey & Co. in their New York and later joined their London offices, where she has advised Fortune 500 companies across the industry verticals. She's the chief commercial officer at Reflaunt, where she works with leading luxury brands to craft their resale strategy and demonstrate the value of resale for brand relevance and customer loyalty. In her 3 years at Reflaunt, she has overseen the growth of the company from 5 to 40 employees and an 11 million Series A funding round. Over to you, Sofia.
Thank you, Barry. It's lovely to be here today. You've already introduced me, so I'll go straight into Reflaunt. Thank you for that. Reflaunt is a B2B resale specialist. What that means is we offer fashion brands and retailers the technology and the operational infrastructure to enter the resale space. So I think a lot of the conversation today will be about the fact that resale is nothing new by now. It's not a new trend. It's been around for quite a while. And our mission really is to accelerate the transition towards the adoption and the growth of this space by involving the brands directly. The founder of Reflaunt, Stephanie, actually, her first venture was a secondhand luxury marketplace. So a lot of what we do today and our positioning comes from that experience and knowing that there's huge growth and some pain points to resolve around the customer experience. And the objective of Reflaunt, or the white space that we came in to fill, was the involvement of the brands. How this works is we convince brands basically to integrate resale and circularity in the core customer experience. So a big belief of ours is we don't want you to do a standalone separate sustainability initiative and offer a little platform where people can engage with circularity. We want you to make resale a core part of how you engage with your customers and the customer journey. How this comes to life, if I give you an example of Balenciaga, which is one of our clients, as a customer of Balenciaga, you, in your engagement with a brand, will be informed either by email or in the stores or on their social media or on their website that one bag that you bought a couple of years ago and you're no longer wearing, you can actually resell it directly with Balenciaga. So a lot of customers today are, let's say, already reselling without the brands getting involved. And you can do so on third-party platforms and go on, create the listing and do all that process. What Balenciaga offers you instead is a very seamless process where you just bring in the bag either in store or you receive a shipping label to send it in. You receive a quote and either in a gift card before the item even sells or on consignment, that item will be sold for you. Obviously, when that item sells for you, you can choose to receive either cash, so a direct bank transfer, or a gift card to use with Balenciaga, on which Balenciaga will add a little extra value for you, which is usually around 20%, for you to then reuse that value with a brand. So there's a couple of elements here around how the brand engages with their customers on resale. The first one is, as I was saying, a lot of the users or the customers of Balenciaga are already reselling, but there's a large chunk that actually are not, especially when we think of luxury customers. I think the Business of Fashion estimated something like $2.1 trillion worth of inventory stuck in people's closets. So definitely a big opportunity. And the brands have a bit of a unique power to reach those customers and convince them to resell, not just because with us, they offer this really seamless service where practically you don't need to lift a finger for your item to be resold, but also because in the luxury space, there's a big trust element. So the idea of having the brand itself handle your bag, value it, and take care of it for you is a big part of the experience. The key topics, let's say, or key things that we really stress a lot on when we think of our business model are a few themes. So the first one would be, as I was saying, resale being really integrated in the customer experience of the brand. So we work a lot with brands in phase approaches, POCs and all that, of course, but really with a vision to integrate in the core journey. To give you an example with Balenciaga, actually today on their website, when you log into your e-commerce account, when you see the historical orders that you've made with a brand, each product will have a resale button next to it, and you can actually start the experience directly from there. We're working with a lot of digital product passport and digital ID providers to also enable you to start the resale experience at the moment of scanning that ID, and a number of more type of executions to really make it so that it's as easy as buying a new product to just resell it in a responsible way for customers. So really with the objective of converting all those customers that are not reselling today because they don't have the time, they don't really critically need that money, so they're not going to go through the hassle and a lot of other barriers. The second point that is very important to us, and that was a big learning through our startup journey, is today we only do what we call managed models. What this means is every item that customers want to resell with our brand partners goes through one of our warehouses. And we have one in the UK, one in Europe, one in the US, Dubai, Singapore, and Hong Kong. So we spent quite a bit of time in the last few years to expand and meet or match the brand's global presence and infrastructure. But it became really important for us to do that because we realized that the brand's right to win is really linked to that customer experience and facilitating that resale in an effective way, which was, as we were discussing just before the podcast, a bit of a bold decision as a startup that really came up as a pure tech play and letting brands offer resale entirely digitally. But that made sense to us because for a brand to build their own peer-to-peer platform, and we tried it, we tested it with a couple partners, we found out it doesn't really make sense for a couple of reasons. I'll be short because I could talk about this for ages. But if you think about it, the first is marketing investment. Why would a brand, it's already hard enough to grow your e-commerce presence. Why would a brand invest marketing dollars into sending traffic to a different platform? So now you're splitting your marketing budget into two sites that you need to grow, build, and refine. And obviously on the secondhand one, the truth is you have much smaller margins because of how secondhand works. So after the launch excitement, it becomes really hard to maintain that and grow organically the platform. And the second reason is related to the customer experience. So as a seller, when you have to recreate that listing and list it on a peer-to-peer platform, the time it will take you to find a buyer on a dedicated, recently built brand platform versus one of the largest platforms in the world, which I won't name, but you can easily go on, is quite different. So you will have a waiting time for you to find a new buyer. And again, it goes back to the marketing point I was making earlier on how much the brand invests in that. And on the buyer side, it's even worse because as a buyer, when you go on a branded platform, even if you know it's peer-to-peer, you do expect an experience that matches the brands. So for you to wait until the seller ships the item and then receive the item, maybe it's in a whatever box that they might use, it might not be in the conditions that the seller said it was. So there's a lot of sort of small hiccups along the journey, which if you're buying on a peer-to-peer platform, you're fully aware and you buy onto that. And you know there's a price convenience that lets you do that. But if you're connecting that experience to the brand, it's very hard to not lose the customer after that. So those are the couple of reasons for which, after testing the waters a bit in peer-to-peer platforms, we've shifted entirely to managed platforms. Because with that, it's a very simple experience that we build online, where the seller just schedules a home pickup or a store drop-off of their items. We reward them with instant or consignment type of reward, and then we take care of the distribution. And actually, the last point I'll make about our model is indeed the distribution. So we took a bit of a different approach in that we're not a marketplace ourselves. So we don't have our own channel. If you go on reflaunt.com, you will not be able to buy any products. What we do is we have integrated with about 30, number keeps growing, channels that offer secondhand products today, so that when we receive a bag in our warehouse and we photograph it and prepare the listing, we can list it simultaneously on all those channels. So we will list it on Vestiaire Collective, on eBay, on Poshmark, and a couple more. The rationale, of course, is that by listing on so many platforms, you can sell it a lot faster because you'll maximize the chances of finding a buyer, and then you make sure that every seller on that consignment model is rewarded and then reinvest with a brand. So those are the key, let's say, defining elements of Reflaunt's offer that basically make us, for brands, more than a sustainability tool or initiative, which is how we started, really a loyalty tool. So usually our stakeholders are really marketing and CRM executives, because it's that bringing the customer back and giving them a gift card to reinvest with a brand, that really drives business for them. And that really is significant.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll get more questions or we'll have a more discussion, and there'll be more questions as we go. But there's one question, Sofia, I wanted to ask you just on that last point. You talked about why brands are doing it and moving away from just the sustainability reasons. Are you finding that you need to do like an education? Is it a case of brands are still very much trying to understand, how early stages are your customers are in all of this thinking?
So much education. I think, so compared to when we started, I think I'm doing a little less convincing on why enter, well, it depends on the brands, but I think overall brands are a lot more open to resale and playing a role. It's really about understanding where the value for them is. So why to do resale, cannibalization, all that, less so concerned today, I would say, for the average brand we speak to. But really then, what does it mean to do resale, and how can they connect it to their bottom line and their business planning? Because effectively then, for it to receive investment and to really grow, it needs to drive value and be aligned with the company's overall KPIs. So this is very important to us, and often I think what every brand thinks of when talking about resale, they think of the selling the products on their site or having a selection of pre-loved items to sell. And everyone gets really uninspired by the fact that they can earn maybe 10, 20% margin, and it's not really attractive. And it really stops the conversation, or it slows it down drastically. Whereas where we come in and we're doing a lot of education and help them define the model and really put down the numbers together is on that seller experience. So for every customer that you bring back on your site to sell something, how much do you generate for the business? Then when it comes together and you also have pre-loved items on your own site, it doesn't even need to be that you're encouraging to buy something new, because they can also use the same credits towards a pre-loved item. But that's maybe a phase two, let's say, discussion with them.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, everyone, do keep the questions coming in on the Q&A chat, and we'll come back and do our best to address them later on. Thank you, Sofia. Appreciate that so much. Joe is our next speaker. So I'm sure a lot of people have heard of Joe as well, but let me try and do my best to introduce you, Joe. Joe is the visionary entrepreneur and the founder of Thrift. He's alumni of University of Cambridge and the Cambridge Judge Business School, and has a rich background in strategy consultant and a passion to revolutionize the way we perceive secondhand clothing. And Joe, you founded Thrift Plus in 2017 to simplify the process of buying and selling pre-owned clothes, transforming secondhand into pre-loved, and the novel concept of the Thrift Box service for donation and sale of quality clothing promises a sustainable future for the charity retail sector. Over to you, Joe.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Sofia, for introducing Reflaunt. Look forward to chatting and discussing the various differences and similarities in business model between all three of us. So yes, thank you very much for having me. I guess maybe if I just explain where I started. Barry just mentioned the charity retail sector. So about 7 years ago, I started to get obsessed with what we do with our secondhand clothes. And the fact that by default, we treat our clothes as waste. Effectively, the first step when you're clearing out your wardrobe, which many of us do once, twice, or multiple times a year, is to go to the kitchen sink and open the cupboard doors and grab a black dustbin bag, which you take upstairs, or a few dustbin bags. And generally, you're pulling clothes out of your wardrobe and shoving them into a black dustbin bag. That'll sit in the corner of the bedroom for a little while, maybe make it to the front door, then to the boot of the car. And once it's in the boot of the car, you forget about it for a few weeks until suddenly you're driving past a charity shop, or there's a big metal donation bin in the corner of the supermarket car park. And so nothing about that experience is helping us to properly engage with our secondhand clothes. And nothing is encouraging kind of high quality donations, or to recognize that some items are higher value, and effectively just treating them as waste. And so I guess just recognizing, I guess 7 years ago, before like the really significant rise of Vinted, obviously we've had eBay for a while, but before that kind of real kind of meteoric rise of reselling. And we have had really high growth of platforms like Vinted, but I think it was eBay's recent press release when they just dropped their selling fees that only 25% of the country is. So by the way, my discussions will be very UK centric. It was really nice to see in the chat how international the audience is. So I'll try and explain if there are uniquenesses about the UK, but we are a UK business, and so it will be very UK centric. So only about 25% of the UK population are engaging with reselling, peer-to-peer reselling like eBay or Vinted. So there's 75%, and they're not engaging either because they're not tech savvy, because it's not worth their time or energy, or they're too busy. You know, their priorities are different, and the return for them isn't enough. And so we're here for everyone else. So what Thrift Plus is a wardrobe clear out service. We try to make it as easy as possible to clear out your wardrobe, and then our mission is to end fashion waste. Our mission is to get those items back into circulation as effectively as possible. So where we're starting is with resale. So just to step through that customer experience quickly, I often forget to do that bit, but you order a Thrift Plus bag from our website, we send it to you in the post, you fill it up with your secondhand clothes. We do have a specific brand checker, kind of a requirement of the types of brands that we can resell, but it is high street brands and above, kind of Zara and above. But we also get quite a lot of clothes in those bags that we can't resell because it's that wardrobe clear out, and we recognize that the proposition is to help people to clear out their wardrobes, and we're fine with that. So you pop those clothes in the bags, and you get a free returns label to drop off at your local Every or Lockers or post office to send it back to us for free. We've then got our own operations. So like Sofia was discussing, we are a managed marketplace. Effectively, we handle every single item that gets uploaded. And so we've got a team of 70 people in our warehouse in the Midlands who are opening each bag, assessing the brand and the quality of every item, and then capturing the data about that item, photographing it, and then our tech then automatically prices and lists across channels. Again, similar to Reflaunt, we, although we do have our own selling channel, our own website and app, but we also list everything we upload to eBay. So we are a very large seller on eBay of secondhand as well. So then for the seller, you've now done not very much at all. You've sent us a bag of clothes. We've told you we've got it. We've processed it. You can check those listings and those prices before the items go live. And then we notify you when your items sell. And you get a small amount of money back. And I say small amount because this is a managed marketplace. It's not the kind of 0% Vinted selling fees. We are, and our team is doing a lot of work to take photos. So on average, the customer's getting about 20% back of the sale. And they can take that as credits or cash into their bank account or donation to charity. So you're not typically using Thrift Plus to maximize your financial return. You're using it to help you clear out your wardrobe because you don't have the time or energy to sell it yourself. And if you are intending to donate to charity, then we are actually a very effective way of donating to charity as well. The items we sell will sell for a higher price through our channel. And then you can donate to any charity, pretty much any charity in the UK, rather than just those major high street charity shops. So I'll take a breath there. So that's the seller proposition. Most of the work that we've done over the last 7 years has been on the operations. We have been trying to get the cost of handling each item down as low as possible. We've been trying to get the percentage of items that we sell as high as possible at an acceptable selling price. So those are the two trade-offs. The selling price and the percentage that you sell is the real trade-off, which we've been playing with and trying to optimize. But effectively, with those three inputs, the cost of handling the item, the percentage of items that sell, and the average selling price of the items, that's the formula that we need to make work in order for this business to be profitable and to scale. We cracked that last November, and so we've now started to scale the model and scale volumes. To give a sense of those volumes, we're handling about 100 or 120,000 items a month, uploading about half of those. So our acceptance rate is about 50%. of what we receive, we actually upload. So last month we uploaded 62,000 items. And then I guess two more points. We also work with brands. So Sofia was talking about working with luxury brands, but that kind of model, actually, I won't make that statement. There's different ways that different types of brands will engage in resale. Our proposition to brands effectively is the brand is promoting our service to their customer base, but it's very light touch for the brand themselves. So they are saying to their customers at checkout, typically, would you like to add a Thrift Plus bag to your basket? And then they've got our Thrift Plus bags in their warehouse, and they're adding them physically to your e-commerce order. So they are helping to spread the word about Thrift Plus, about circularity, about take back services. But other than that, the operational complexity for the brand is almost zero. Everything else from the point at which the customer receives one of our bags is handled by us. So we have partnerships with Fat Face, White Stuff, White Company, Crew Clothing, Gymshark, and a number of others. And I guess looking ahead, where we have got to now, one of the important things that we've just done is improve the seller proposition to allow people to take cash out of the system, and we've seen that really pick up in the appeal of the proposition, that people can now get a payment of cash directly into their bank account. We said people aren't doing this in order to earn a lot of money, but it is still nice to get on average £9 back. You know, when we're making payments, the average payment's about somewhere between £9 and £15. That's still useful, you know, to people, when otherwise there would have been no return for them. And so we're starting to just handle that increased scale at the moment. So as a business, we're starting to scale our operations, and the next investment we'll make is in the automation and capacity expansion in our warehouse. That's the kind of stage we're at. And then where's my head at looking forward a little, our mission is to end fashion waste. And at the moment, we're doing a relatively minor part on the way to our mission. We're kind of taking the cream of the crop and reselling it. But my brain is now whirring to have a think, well, actually, what does it really mean to try and end fashion waste? The phrase we use when we're talking internally or speaking to our advisors or investors or partners is to build the infrastructure for resale at scale. What does that mean? At the moment, there's just been a report released by Wrap to say that 49% of our secondhand clothes are still just going directly in the black dustbin at our houses. So what needs to change, and how can we make sure that our secondhand clothes are getting, in my view and in the way that I see the world, getting to a centralized location where those clothes can be sorted and effectively handled, whether that means resale, whether it means donation, or whether it means recycling. So I'm starting to have a think ahead at moving not just from resale, but also helping people to recycle or deal with their end of life clothes. We won't do the recycling, but you can see we own we can help the consumer, but also donation as well. I think the charity retail sector, as I said, that's where I started. I was building an app for high street charity shops. That's where this whole thing started 7 years ago. I think the charity retail sector does an absolutely amazing job at being our distributor. It's very UK centric, but I know there's equivalents around the world. We have 10,000 small high street charity shops where most of the population put their bags of clothes when they're done with them. Those charity shops are run by something like 120,000 volunteers, and they're effectively manually sorting our secondhand clothes and reselling them on the high street. I'm interested to see how Thrift Plus can really engage with that sector and help to supercharge that kind of donation mindset as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joe. Lots of questions. Do keep copying the questions coming in. There's one that I do think we need to address that came up. You mentioned 50% of the clothes get resold. What do you do with the other 50%?
So we have some relationships with small local charity shops that come and collect from us on a daily basis. We're producing too many clothes for our local charity shops. So we have a partnership with a company called Ward, who are, I'm going to shy away from the phrase textile recycler, although that's what many of these companies do call themselves, but effectively it's a textile exporter, and those clothes are then sorted overseas in order to then be resold. It's a really interesting, I won't dive all the way into it, but there is a lot of movement and discussion and opinion going on at the moment in that space, because we often automatically assume that those clothes are waste, and that us exporting it means us exporting it to landfill. It's a very complex area, but effectively we can't afford in the UK to handle and sort our own clothes. I would say as a statement. Very happy to debate, but and so typically our secondhand clothes are then sorted overseas where the labor is cheaper, and there is a large secondhand market for those clothes. So that's what we do with the approximately 50% that can't be resold for brand reasons. But we are having conversations with large national UK charity shop networks in case we can instead recirculate them here in the UK.
Thank you, and thank you for pointing at that massive debate and the sort of the challenge there. Not that it's your responsibility to do something of this 50%. I think there's also an interesting question, which I don't know if we'll get time to today, about the creation and the design and if that's feeding into the problem. But thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And also thank you for sharing the mission part and the sort of broader what your next steps is. That's kind of really inspiring, and one of the reasons we want to have these conversations. But let's meet Charlotte. Charlotte is again, somebody many people on this call will know, but let me introduce you anyway. Is a great British Sustainability Entrepreneur of the Year and known for her record-breaking Dragon's Den appearance with her business, The Little Loop. She launched The Little Loop in 2020 after leaving her role as head of digital product at Not on the High Street. And since then, she's grown to a community of over 20,000 committed parents, 20 brand partners, and hundreds of active subscribers, and is on the way to building the best way for parents to dress their children. Over to you, Charlotte.
Thank you, Barry. It's quite hard going last on one of these things because I've absorbed everything that Sofia and Joe have said. And actually the interesting thing about us and why it's good that we've gone last is we're a hybrid in some ways of both of those models, which makes it somewhat complicated. And we've had a bit of a journey to get to where we are as well. But I'll try and explain a little bit about that journey and about what it is that we're doing now and how we've got here. The point that Joe made last about how we get more items recirculated, how we keep more items in use is very much the starting point for the Little Loop. And when I first conceived of the business, the answer to that question for me was rental, because it felt like if we were offering garments in such a way that it was guaranteed that they would come back to us and be reused again, the purist in me said, well, that absolutely optimizes reuse, and so rental has got to be the model. And we did build a rental business, and the Dragon's Den appearance was with the rental business. But there is still a consumer who you've got to convince of a different way of living and a different way of doing things, and honestly it's a very, very difficult task to change behavior. And so whilst I still believe that rental is a fantastic model, we very much experienced the fact that without huge resources, huge financial resources, it was very difficult to scale a rental business, even in the children's wear space where rental seems to make so much sense. And we would get that feedback constantly. What a great idea. But the actual reality of people's behavior was different. And we weren't finding that the uptake of it was at the level that we needed to be able to scale and enable the business to survive. That notwithstanding, the problem still exists. And I've never been able to let go of the problem. And it's something that after 5 years in the space is kind of in my core. If you cut me in half, this issue of circularity would be right through me, and I just can't let go of it. And it's growing. It's, you know, I think it's what everyone's just said kind of demonstrates exactly why we need circularity, and the fact that it is growing and that there's much more demand now than there was when any of us started our businesses. 84% of parents are now buying secondhand clothes for their kids. So we know that secondhand is in demand. We know that the global carbon emissions for the fashion industry are far higher than they ought to be. And we know that the levels of waste are right up there. So that something has to be done. So I couldn't let go of this issue. And whilst rental clearly wasn't going to scale, we put our heads together and thought, well, we've got a little bit of money left. Let's see what we can do to try and pivot the business. And again, very much like the point that Joe made about the fact that only 25% of people are reselling their garments. We've surveyed 2,000 parents and found exactly the same thing. There's actually more like 35% of parents will resell their children's clothes. I think for obvious reasons, kids are growing out of clothes very quickly. They don't wear them to their maximum usage potential. And so there's a slightly higher number of parents reselling their clothes, but 35% is not enough. And there are over 225 million items of kids' wear stored unworn in UK homes. So it brought us back to the problem, which again has been discussed a couple of times now, which is that it's still too hard to recirculate clothing. And where we've very much been laser focused is how do we make it easier? So if only 34% are selling, despite the huge rise in popularity of Vinted, what's stopping people? Why is that an issue? And so our mission is to make secondhand a first resort. It's to make sure that people are thinking about secondhand at the point at which they buy an item, so that when they actually purchase it, they think about the fact that it can go on to have a second life or a third life or a fourth life, ideally, which means various things. First of all, you're going to think about maybe buying better quality, maybe spending slightly more money on what you're buying because you know you can get some money back. And also maybe that you're going to look after that garment better, which in kids wear is quite important because there is a kind of generally received attitude, which is kids trash their clothes. Actually, kids don't trash their clothes. Parents trash their clothes by not washing them properly. Unpopular viewpoint. I do have kids. So I think that's kind of step one of what we've been trying to build is making people think about the entire lifespan of a garment at the point at which they purchase it, rather than it being this kind of afterthought that comes later down the line when you're thinking, oh, well, how do I get rid of these clothes? And then not just getting people at that point, but then when people are ready to sell their children's clothes, to resell their children's clothes, to make that a very, very smooth process. So we had a tech platform that we built for rental. We've adapted that platform and we've effectively created what Deborah Meaton described as rental by the back door, which is kind of true. When you buy your garment, you're told how much money you might get back for it. And then you can very seamlessly trade it in exchange for credit or indeed for vouchers with the brand that you bought it from. So we've built a brand integrated resale platform. The reason I describe it as a hybrid between the Reflaunt and Thrift Plus models, and it's not a perfect hybrid, but we offer a plugin on brand websites. So we're showing resale prices at the point of purchase. We're enabling you to save your purchases in a centralized digital closet. So all of the brands that you might be interacting with that are our partners, you can save all your purchases in one centralized digital closet. And then you trade them all in together in one. So you're not having to trade in garments with X brand, Y brand, Z brand, 3 separate transactions. You might as well go and sell on Vinted if you're going to do that when you're selling low priced items. I think this is a very different model than the luxury model, to be very clear. But when you're selling items which are very low price point, you don't want to be having to have all of those interactions. It's very time consuming, and it means that the model's not really that much better than a peer-to-peer model. So you can trade all of your garments in one place, and then we sell them on our marketplace. And the reason for that is to increase the likelihood that they're going to sell, because again, our fear has always been that with low price point garments, and parents tend to buy from a range of brands, it's very rare that someone is loyal to just one brand. So to go and buy your garments, your second-hand garments from lots of different sites, again, it becomes not a realistic expectation. You might as well go to Vinted. And we've done huge amounts of testing with customers. And what we have heard constantly is the prevalent models are winning out because of choice. And that's what Thrift Plus offers so brilliantly. But Vinted for the children's wear space is still very much winning out there. Being able to do everything in one place and being able to get all your money back in one place. And so we've tried to build a kind of an antidote to that, which works for brands, which is profitable for brands in the kids wear space, which is also very difficult. We make that possible by offering the operations. So our operations are fine-tuned to the kidswear market, to low price point. I think we could learn a huge amount from Joe. I think he's been spending quite a lot longer on this than we have, but we have managed to get operations to a point where we can still make a profit for brands. And we're making it as seamless as we humanly possibly can for customers, because customer inertia in resale is the death of resale. If customers don't want to engage with it, or don't have the wherewithal or the energy to engage with it, then it's not going to work. So nearly all of our focus has been on making that a seamless journey. Where next, I suppose we've only just really launched this. So we did spend 3 years doing rental. We've spent the last year pivoting, rebuilding technology. We've been testing the market for us. Can we be resellers of children's clothes? We have a clear out scheme very similar to Joe's, where we will sell customers a bag that they can fill up and send garments to us. So that's been running for 6 months and has been very successful. But we've just launched the brand integrated scheme now. And we are hoping to launch with more brands over the next few months. So that's our big focus at the moment, is to get this into as many brands as we possibly can. Obviously, its success is very much contingent upon having a wide range of well-recognized and well-loved brands using it, but we've got some fantastic pipeline discussions going on there. We are launching a physical permanent pop-up, if that isn't an oxymoron, in John Lewis, Oxford Street from summer. Which is a bit of a diversion in some ways, but a fantastic showcase for secondhand. A really good way for us to show people the quality and the condition of secondhand clothing, to convince those few doubters that actually children's clothing can be incredible when it's secondhand. It's fantastic for our profile as well. We're continuing to refine our operations, and we will also be integrating with those platforms that the others have discussed in order to maximize our opportunity to sell the clothing. So we hope to integrate with eBay first, and then others hopefully after that. So there's lots going on. We are very much a tech play and an operations play, again, much like the others have described. I think that the two do go very much hand in hand. You have to optimize both to make this work, and it's quite hard to be handing off to a third party if you want to make the whole thing work. And that is particularly critical in the kidswear space because of the margin. It is a low margin game, and anything that you can do to optimize that is paramount, really. We've spoken with kidswear brands who've tried to build take-back schemes with tech providers who are really designed for higher margin adult clothing, and they were going to be making a loss on every single garment when they integrated every single provider into that chain, and they ended up not launching the scheme, which is obviously a massive shame, but also I think it left them feeling very despondent about the potential for resale for their business. And what we're here to do is to say, don't worry, we've created a model that actually can work for those lower price point garments. That being said, we will only work with quality, ethical brands. We don't particularly want to promote brands that aren't doing the right thing. That's about us. I'm going to stop wittering. I hope I've demonstrated why we're that kind of in that hybrid space between the two, and it's very peculiarly because we are building for the kidswear space.
Outstanding. Thank you, Charlotte. As you say, it's and I think you did that amazingly, describing where that fits and the journey that you've been on, and the pivot and where you are now. So thank you so much. Thank you all three of you for being so transparent with this conversation as well. I'm realizing how valuable that is as I hear each of you speak. We're heading sort of 10 minutes before we finish the recording, so I'd like to try and get a couple of the attendee questions in if we can before we stop the recording. There's one here that I really like, maybe just addressed to all of you, especially Charlotte, with some of the things you just finished there, is that I guess a similar question to ask you at the start, Sofia, about education. But the question is, what are the current challenges for more business to embrace resale, and how can we, and maybe thinking in terms of this call, address that together?
Shall I kind of take that point forward?
Please do. Yeah.
I mean, I think there are various different models in the market at the moment, and there's a lot of, I think no one's really focused in on which one works, and nobody really knows exactly which one's going to work best. So I think if I were a brand, I would be struggling slightly to understand which one's going to be best for my brand. I think that's why we're very much focused on kidswear. We could build our model for other verticals, but we are laser focusing on kidswear because we want to be able to say to kidswear brands, we are the ones to work with because we know this space inside out. And I actually had a similar conversation with Joe the other week, that he knows his space, we know our space, which if brands are able to find that provider that knows their space, and Sofia knows the luxury space, then they're going to have a much better chance of success. There are quite a lot of generalist providers who I think are maybe building things which will work for some brands but won't necessarily work for others, and I think it's hard for brands to cut through that. I think there's a bit of brand inertia because not all brands are certain about what it is, and you asked Sofia this question earlier, what it is they're trying to achieve. Are they trying to make a profitable model? Is it for relevance? Certainly one of the biggest brands that we work with, it's very much about relevance in the market at the moment. Is it about doing the right thing? And depending on what it is that's their driver and who it is in that company who's driving it, is it the marketing team driving their resale scheme? Is it a financial decision that can hit upon issues? And I think for brands, they need to really crystallize what it is that they're trying to achieve from it and talk to the providers who know their space the best, who can educate them. And again, Sofia said she's doing a lot of educating, but don't be afraid to ask the providers to help with that. You don't have to come to it with all of the answers as the brand because you're not resale experts, and that's okay.
Thank you. Joe or Sofia, feel to jump in if you feel any more questions as well.
Sofia, I'm interested on your view there as a specifically kind of core business of partnering with brands, and then happy to jump in as well.
Yeah, I think it goes back a bit to what I was saying earlier about the financial aspect. I think indeed, Charlotte, you had a very good point on some brands do it for relevance, some do it. There's a number of levers and reasons to get into it. I think probably this year, even more so with the chaos in the world and the markets being so unstable and everyone trying to wrap their heads around targets, forecasts, and what to do, a lot of the nice to have initiatives are being cut. And so it's really more important than ever for brands to understand how does this build towards their overall strategy of engaging with their customers, growing their customer base, growing their business. And so that's where I think a lot of the unlocking we are trying to do is, and really trying to link that to you can actually grow your business, maybe even without producing as much by just doing this initiative. And how does that look like? So that's a lot of what we're trying to focus on.
Yeah, and that loyalty piece that you described and that we're also building in with the vouchers that you get in return for the trade-ins is so key. And I think that's very much been all the brands that we've spoken to, that's been the first thing that they've actually, much more than we had anticipated that they wanted from it. It is absolutely a loyalty mechanism, and we've actually built that in retrospectively on top of the other things that we offered as now one of the primary reasons for using our service.
Yeah, I think that just makes so much sense. I think all three of us have identified the opportunity, both the opportunity and the impact that we can have as making or encouraging people who don't currently engage with resale to engage with resale. We know that reselling and getting items back into circulation is the best. It keeps things up as high up the waste hierarchy as possible. But we also have to really recognize that there isn't a huge financial win here for brands, basically. And so I say, by the way, I say some of these things, I don't mean them as fact, like my opinion at the moment, which is very happy to discuss. But from where I'm sitting, from what I've seen, there doesn't feel like there's huge financial gains. This isn't the FD getting excited about resale. This is either we have to do this because everyone else is, and that's, I think, probably the relevance metric that Charlotte was talking about, or it's brand loyalty engagement and engaging with our customers for a longer period of time after we've sold the product. That's amazing. And Sofia was explaining that about that her key stakeholders, I think you meant marketing and CRM executives, not FD. FD is not getting excited about this. So I think the power of brands to help engage people who otherwise wouldn't be engaged in resale is really important. And the way that we encourage more of them to do that is to talk to them about their customer and their relationship with the customer, rather than necessarily trying to like convince and over convince. There is a profitable model here. Don't worry, there's a profitable model here. I think it's investment in that marketing and customer engagement piece.
It's probably worth mentioning ESG as well, and the legislation, which I think we all believe is coming. We don't know, but that end producer responsibility legislation, which is moving in, and hopefully there's going to come a point where brands are going to have to offer something and be able to provide some data on that. And again, I think there's quite a lot of us in the market who are slightly gambling on that and building towards that. Where, you know, data is going to be a key part of what we offer in terms of, you know, what percentage of your garments are actually being reused, which we hope will be very valuable to brands at some point. But it's quite hard for brands to be thinking about a future possible requirement when, as you said, there's a lot of chaos in the markets and it comes down to the bottom line at the moment.
I was just going to add to Jo's point, indeed, on the marketing bit. I think we're also seeing a bit of a reckoning from customers on the ways that brands communicate with them and the messages that are being pushed. And there's only so many new collections, new collaborations, new things that you can push to them and expect them to buy on and get excited about. There's rising costs of TikTok and all social media going through the roof with GDPR and all that regulation piece. So I think it's a lot of brands today are really shifting towards services as a way to bring customers back. And that's where some of the circularity, be it resale, but also be it repair, rental, there's a lot of models. And we try to collaborate a lot with partners across verticals to really bring to brands a consolidated solution. So that's where brands are betting on to really engage with their customers and not lose the authenticity or genuinity of that relationship.
I'd also there's also an interesting difference here, I wonder, as well, between the luxury and the high street or mass market space. We really value our brand partnerships for the fact that our brand can sit alongside some really established, brilliant, well-loved brands. But actually, it's not a requirement of our model. You know, it's not our core way that we acquire customers. Actually, it's pretty easy for us to reach customers because this is a message that people are open to, and there are channels. You know, we're effectively offering people a free. There's different. Some services charge for the bags. We offer a free bag and a free return service. That means that customer acquisition and seller acquisition for us is very, very low. Whereas I can imagine in the luxury space, if you're trying to randomly convert a luxury customer to sell their Balenciaga bag off the back of a Facebook ad, that's pretty difficult. So you can see how the model's brand relationships are much more important at one end of the market. So I would also just add there, like, the context above that question, which was how can we get more brands to engage? Well, actually, the importance of brands engaging in it, again, definitely a statement worthy of debate, but the importance of brands engaging with it is probably more important in some parts of the market and less important in others. I believe I mentioned it on the podcast episode, but, you know, Vinted's exponential rise hasn't relied on brands communicating Vinted. And I'm excited for the next Vinteds to kind of come out of the woodwork over the next few years. I don't necessarily think, I think it will, a lot of this is happening to brands, basically. And they're trying to race to catch up, and the consumer moves faster than brands. So I'm excited about building services and building things directly for the consumer to solve the consumer's need and desire, and brands will follow along behind. And clearly, it's not quite as straightforward as that, but my thinking on it is developing, if you see what I mean.
I think we like to flip that slightly on its head and think that a customer would be more likely to buy from a brand if they have got the option for a very easy resale experience, certainly in the kidswear space. And so in a way, albeit we're so tiny that at the moment it's not going to have that impact yet, but we hope to reward the brands that are doing it well, because a customer will be more likely to come and purchase with them. I'm already doing it myself. I had to buy my daughter some pajamas new. I don't buy new. I had to. And I went and bought from a store where I knew I'd be able to trade them in with my business, because if I had gone and bought from a different business, I wouldn't have been able to do that, and I had to find a different way to get rid of them. And if we can expand that sense amongst the consumer, then it feels like it's a win-win for everybody. It's easier for the consumer, it's a win for the brands, and actually it should hopefully penalize those brands that don't make garments which are good enough quality that they can be resold and that they can engage in these schemes, because at some point there has to be a reckoning for that fast fashion model, which is ultimately causing the problems that we're all trying to solve.
Thank you so much. That's utterly amazing. We've got 12 or so more questions, 13 more questions in the list as well. But some of that conversation touched on on some of them. However, I will keep a sort of follow up my promise to say that we'll end the recording now and continue the conversation in a less formal. People can come and ask their questions as well. Thank you so much to all three of you I know how busy you all are and how much time and for coming along and sharing everything there and being so transparent. Like I said, it's invaluable, and I appreciate that massively. Thank you everybody who's attended and joined and listened and asked these questions. I hope you all hang around now for continuing the conversation. If you can, reach out to me if anybody wants any follow-up or anything. I'm very passionate about circularity. I'm very open to just conversations. Thank you so much. We'll stop the recording and continue the conversation. Grab a biscuit. Stay with us.